So just so you have a reference, I'm going to put a few notes here. So the function equivalent for what we just did, and I'm going to give you the SQL equivalent. So if we were to write out a function, so instead of doing this lambda expression, if we were to write out a function, that function would look something like private bool username match. See if I can type. And then we would have probably something like user row. Let me actually write it this way so I don't have to fix all my comments. Now again, this is just to give you a representation. This is not actually functional code per se, but this is what that code is doing that we wrote in this lambda expression. So you can see the parallels. And then this would say return row dot username equals new user dot username. So that's what that equivalent is there. And as you can see, writing this out isn't that lengthy, but it can become lengthy. And we had to write out the private bool and all of that, and then actually define it, where here it's just a one-time, we did it, we're done, almost like a throwaway. But the goal here is that we could write it quickly, do it in line, and not have to go outside of the context of what we're building and create another function somewhere. Because this would actually have to live, well, it'd have to live all the way up here or all the way at the bottom of our class. You couldn't declare the function right inside of another function. So at the same time, that then generates the following SQL code. It would be something like select count 1 1 from TBL user where username equals, and then this would be new user name. And that's a parameter. So then the new user name parameter with the @ sign, it's like a variable in SQL. You would actually end up probably doing something like declare new username varchar 400 set new username equal to, and then whatever that user's name is. So let's say it's so you declare that parameter, we'd set the value, and then we'd run the statement, and this select statement would return back a 1 or a 0, depending on what you're looking for, and that would basically identify if there are any items that are matching in the database. So this is a lot of code here that you would normally have to write by hand, but instead we basically do context users dot any, and then we say, are there any rows with the username equal to the new user's username? So while that looks a little complex, this would be a whole lot more code to write. But this is the equivalent of this one line of code. So between writing this lambda expression and utilizing Entity Framework, all of this code gets replaced by a single line. So food for thought. All right, so I'll leave those there. They're just nice to haves. I'm actually going to go ahead and so I can collapse this out of the way, I'm going to do what's called a region. And this will be non-entity framework code. And that goes down to here. And regions are nice because if you run into cases where you want to kind of move something out of the way, you can do something like that. And that's where the code example, and that's where that will live. So it just kind of lives there, and then you can mouse over it and see it, or you can expand it and see it. This does not get compiled into anything. It just gets pulled out when the compiler runs. So it's really just there as something to help you organize your code. You can use regions if you'd like. I use them occasionally when I have a lot of actions and I want to group them together.